Hi there, I'm here today with Dr. Ralph Wilson of Web Marketing Today. Ralph's well, quite the maven in the industry. He's been around since, I think, 95, is it?
That's right.
That's right, okay. Well, Web Marketing Today is one of those resources that I recommend everyone. It's got so much information, it's constantly updating, and I've always wondered how Ralph does it. You know, I know he does a lot of writing, he manages a lot of writers, and you know, a lot of us have blogs that this sort of applies to. So, how do you do it, Ralph? Give us some tips on how you manage so much work.
Don't sleep, I think that helps. I think tip number one is sit down and figure out where you're going ahead of time so that you have an idea where you're headed. If you have to sit down every day and figure out what am I going to write about today, you spend half your time churning.
Right.
So what I try to do, if I've got a project coming or a series of some kind, I'll sit down and outline it. So I'm going to cover this and this one, then I'll cover that, and then I'll cover that aspect and cover that aspect, so that I don't have to come up with ideas all the time. And I find that saves a lot of mental energy, because coming up with a good idea is really a lot of the work.
Very difficult. And I know a lot of our readers have the same issue. So, and do you keep like a notepad on you at all times to write down ideas, or how do you manage that? Because you must have ideas pop up all the time.
I'm not that creative, though occasionally something will come to me, and I've learned if you trust your memory, you don't always remember that great idea you had. So I grab anything. I'm famous for restaurant napkins, or bulletins at church, or something, and I'll write down the idea when it comes to me, because later it doesn't come with the same clarity often.
Mm-hmm. Great. So more tips, please.
Yeah, well, then when I sit down to write like an article, I will outline the article very briefly. I have a limit to the articles that I write for Web Marketing Today is 500 words, 600 maximum. That's what I tell everybody. I don't always observe the rule myself, but so it's a finite space I have to fill. So then I'll sit down and I will write the 3 or 4 points that I want to cover. Any more than that really is too much for that length. And figure, okay, this is what I'm going to cover, just the bare outline, and then I'll write those 3 points or 4 points, whatever it is. Sometimes I'll write the introduction at that point. Sometimes the introduction comes later and I'll go and revise the introduction I started with, and then finish it off with a sentence. I'm not big on long introductions to things because in that space you can't.
Right.
One of the things I see about so many blogs that I read is that they tend to ramble. And I tend to ramble unless I discipline myself. So that's why I outline first, and then I fill out the paragraph for that point, then write the introduction, write the conclusion.
Interesting.
Then the trick then is, how do you clean it up so that you catch all your mistakes? Which I don't always catch all my mistakes, but what I've found is, one, if you have time to let it sit for a day before you go over it again, you can come to it with more objectivity. The other thing that I found that works pretty well is read it out loud. So I read it out loud, I print it out, instead of trying to do this on the screen. I do the first pass on the screen, kind of see if there's anything obvious, but then I'll print it out, and I'll sit down and I'll read it out loud, because in the process of reading it out loud, if it doesn't sound right, I'll catch it, or if I'm missing a word, which is very common, I'll catch it. Catching spellings isn't nearly as hard as catching the missing words.
Yeah, and the grammar as well. Definitely.
So then I'll take that marked up piece of paper and make the corrections on the computer version. Then I'll print it out again, and I'll repeat the process.
Wow.
Because the second time through it's much cleaner, but I'll still catch things. Now, if I've got somebody there who can read it for me, if I'm not that much of a deadline, I'll have a third person read it. By that time, it's usually pretty clean.
Excellent. Wow. I'm impressed. He does a lot of my editing too when I write for him, so I know I ramble a little.
You have pretty clean stuff, actually.
But well, that's very interesting. And what do you have tips for people on how to well, manage that amongst all the other tasks they have? I mean, there's so much writing that can be done, and you have to find a limit. how much are you going to do, how much are you not going to do, and how do you manage all
Well,
your things?
I don't know. You have to sort of figure out what are your priorities.
Right.
So for me, publishing an issue of Web Marketing Today every week is a big priority. So Mondays, I know that's the day that I'm, if I haven't got it done already, I'm trying to get it now done on Fridays, but if I haven't got it done, that's what I do on Monday. I spend Monday writing, working at, hopefully the idea is already developed by that time. So I have a day that I work on that particularly. I also work with projects. So I'll have, I'm about ready to revise the shopping cart report, for example. Okay. I just finished a book. I'm also a pastor, so I finished a Bible study, 200-page Bible study book for a Bible study I'm starting online.
You don't sleep?
No. And so I'm about ready to revise this book. So that's my big project for the next couple of months. And there's a lot of research involved. So I'll just, that's going to come before a lot of the other things. Sometimes I get away from my desk. My desk has all the unfinished projects sitting there calling to me. And sometimes I get very undisciplined and I do this and do that and check my email and blah, blah, blah. So having a laptop and going to another room or going over to the library sometimes is what I need to get focus.
Excellent. So find a different space.
That helps sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you very much, Ralph. I appreciate it.
You're
Can you tell
welcome.
us a little more about Web Marketing Today?
Yeah, Web Marketing Today is a publication I've been publishing since 1995. It's a email newsletter, reaches 108,000 subscribers every week.
Wow.
And our goal is to help people from small to medium businesses figure out internet marketing space, keep them up on what's important, not the newest thing, but the most important things, and give them some perspective.
Excellent. Well, I highly recommend it. I've been there, I love it, and hopefully you'll check it out. Thanks very much, and have a good night.